Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Anna Michalska. I'm the co-coordinator for the call that we are presenting to you today. And I will be taking you through the call basics, the timeline of the evaluation and of the whole process, and the main mandatory and not mandatory elements that you would have to could take into account if you decide to apply under the call. So here are the basics, the title. I'm putting a lot of links in my presentation, so you can always come back to it. As Ralph said before, the presentations will be uploaded on the call website, so you can, if you need more information on certain aspects, consult the documents that are linked, the documents and the websites. This is for your facilitation. The call budget is 6 million, and we put the bracket of maximum grant per project between 750,000 and 1 million. So then, by simple mathematics, we expect to have 6 to 8 projects coming out successfully with the grant under the call. The project duration should be between 24 and 36 months, with all the projects starting their implementation in September next year. You have, of course, the link to the electronic submission under the call, where you can find all the information, all the documents, and also FAQs, which will be feeding in after the event, and also whenever you send us any questions in the meantime, up to, I believe, 7 February. Going further, this is the indicative call timeline. We published the call on 9 November, and the deadline for submission is 14 February, 5 p.m. Central European Time. You cannot be late even 1 minute, because the system will not let you through. So please prepare at least a bit upfront, because it would be a shame to be late after so much preparation and effort put into building the application. So please take this deadline to your hearts if you submit an application. After this, we plan the evaluation period, which should last until May next year, later on followed for the successful applications, for the successful projects invited to the grant preparation, with the process of exactly preparing the grant and then signature of the grants, which should last until August, with, as I already mentioned, the project starting in September next year. Then the projects should be implemented, as I already also mentioned, between 24 and 36 months. So for those who will last 24 months, we will have, as customary, the pre-financing transferred to the project, and only one final payment at the end of the project. And for the projects which would last more than 24 months, we would have on top of it one interim payment at midterm. So 2 sets of payments during the project run. And then, depending on what length the successful projects choose, the final reporting and the payment and finalization of the projects would last between August 25 and August 2026. For the applicants and participants, this is for those who are accustomed with our system, a repetition, but let me still spell it out. You can have several categories of applicants and participants under your grants. So the beneficiaries, the entities who receive EU funding and they execute the tasks, they implement the project directly, they need to be registered and validated in our systems. You might choose to have affiliated entities also. These are the entities linked to the beneficiary, to a beneficiary, one of them. They do not sign the grant agreement, but they receive EU funding, so they must be registered and validated. But here there is an important difference, that they do not count to a minimum eligibility criteria of the consortium. So I will come back to this point later on, but just to spell it out, that there is a difference between treatment of the applicants within the consortium in this respect. You might want to have associated partners as well. They do not receive our funding, but they still need to be registered in our systems. You might have subcontractors. They don't need to be spelled out the names of the entities, they don't need to be put already in the application, but you should have an idea which tasks and for what kind of financial volume you would have to subcontract already. You should have this idea already in the application. So please indicate if you choose to do so. You might want to have third parties giving in-kind contributions. These are also not formal recipients of our funding, but also they need to be mentioned in terms of their presence in the implementation of the project already in the application form. And an obvious reminder, proposals must be submitted by a consortium of applicants, and the applicants, these are the beneficiaries. So my first bullet point on the slide. And of course, among all the partners in the consortium, you have to choose one coordinator who will be responsible for coordination of the project, but also submission of the proposal and contacts towards us throughout the project implementation. This will be the whole process after you apply. So after the application, there are certain checks and certain phases of the whole core development that I will be talking about in my presentation. So I will mention the admissibility, eligibility checks, the exclusion situations, and the capacity checks that we are doing, the financial and operational capacity ones. And later on, I will mention, of course, the evaluation process and towards the award. You have here again on my slide at the bottom the functional mailbox that we are having for your use if you have any other questions beyond this event, and later on you might want to submit us any query. Going into admissibility, so your application to be admissible needs to meet certain criteria. It has to be submitted electronically via the funding and tender portal before the deadline which I mentioned, and here again not a minute later, so please fit within it. The applications need to be readable, accessible, and printable, and here just a hint, please upload only PDF documents, and please be careful with the detailed budget table. This is the most tricky one because the template is given in Excel format for you, and this Excel, not only as Excel being tricky, but also it's quite a wide and big table. So sometimes it causes the problems when you transfer it into the PDF. So please pay attention that the whole budget table is then included into the new PDF format. And of course, the applications must be complete, and complete, that means that they encompass part A and part B, and both of them, they comprise several parts that I will be now enumerating. I mean, they are listed here on this slide of mine, but here are a bit more details. You have the application forms linked at the top of my slide already, so you can have a look how the whole template for the application looks like, and prepare upfront the information that you will be filling in or preparing outside in the documents and then uploading them into the system. So then you have part A. These are the administrative forms. You will be filling it online within our submission platform. And this covers the general information, the proposal abstract, the declarations by the consortium partners. It covers also administrative data of participating organizations and the general budget for the proposal per partner with the total estimated eligible costs and requested grant in euro. So this is the part A. And the part B, these are the templates that you need to upload from our submission system, fill in, turn into PDF, and upload once again. And part B is composed of first technical description. So this is the description of the whole project and its implementation that you will be writing. And you have the template submission system also linked on my slide. This technical description needs to fit up within the limit of 50 pages. So anything beyond 50 pages will be blanked by the system, so the evaluators will not be able to read it. So please fit within 50 pages only, or not only, but it needs to be quite concise. Plus, part B has 3 annexes: the detailed budget table that I already mentioned, and here caveat, let's say, in the submission system, you have 3 templates provided for you for the detailed budget table, and you need to choose the one that I'm giving the title of on my slide, so the one that finishes with the number 90. Then you have the list of previous key projects for the last 4 years. This is the template that is already incorporated in the application form Part B, and Annex 5, eligibility checklist for the consortium, and this is linked on my slide and available on our SMEs core webpage. So you have to cover all these elements for the application to be complete. And here is the very blunt illustration, graphic illustration, how it looks in the system. So what you submit and where. Again, part A, you are editing the forms in the system, in the submission system. Part B, you are uploading the templates, and I'm showing you which templates you have available and which one you need to be using and uploading respectively in the first and the second field. Then CVs and annual activity reports do not concern you, and the two following annexes, list of previous projects, as I already said, this is already included in Part B, and under annexes you need to upload the consortium eligibility checklist. And here is the top screen, let's say the look of the eligibility checklist that you need to upload, fill in, and upload again into the system to demonstrate your consortium eligibility. So this is a bit of a repetition, but I thought that for being as blunt, as clear, it could be useful, because one can get lost in so many elements when submitting an application, obviously. And now going into eligibility requirements for the applicants, we have the eligibility requirements for applicants and the consortium. So let's say two batches of requirements in terms of you being eligible for submitting the proposal and for evaluation, in fact. And for the applicants, meaning the beneficiaries, affiliated entities, associated partners, they must be legal entities, public or private bodies. They need to be established in an eligible country, and these are EU member states, Ukraine, and countries participating in single market program, which are listed under the link that I'm giving you in my slide. And the applicants need to be registered in the participant register for submitting the proposal. And here on the right-hand side of my slide, I'm linking a guideline on how to register your organization for your facilitation if you need more guidelines on how to perform this task. Now I'm going into eligibility requirements on of the consortium, and here a consortium of applicants, meaning the beneficiaries this time, not affiliated entities. The consortium needs to have at least 6 independent entities from at least 3 different eligible countries, at least 1 social economy intermediary per participating country involved in the consortium, and a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 2 support organizations active at EU level, such as sectorial member federations or associations or networks representing social economy entities. And here for this listing, there is a caveat that you can read below the bullet points on my slide, and also, of course, in the core document, that the eligibility requirement of at least 1 social economy intermediary per eligible country involved, so the one in the second bullet point, does not apply to EU level support organizations. This means that the EU countries, that the countries of registration of participating EU level support organizations do not count for the purpose of fulfilling the eligibility requirement in the second bullet point. This sounds a bit blurry when you read it, and when I'm speaking about this quite fast, but please give it a moment to again when you are applying. This, of course, I mean, the purpose here is that support organizations active at EU level do not necessarily act within the country of their registration, so they shouldn't be treated, I mean, they shouldn't be treated as covering already the country of social economy intermediary from the second bullet point. So we wanted to kind of break this link here to still have the coverage of as many participating country and represented country in the consortium as possible. And here a few more words about what we understand as social economy intermediary and support organizations active at EU level. So the main actors as we see the consortia to be formed. Social economy intermediary can be established as business support organization, cluster, network, incubator, accelerator, sectoral federation or association, providing dedicated support services to social economy entities or federate social entities at local, regional, or national level. And support organizations active at EU level, they are quite a similar type of organization, but as the title says, they need to be active in a more broad way, so active at EU level, of course, active in the field of social economy, but this active at EU level refers to the overall mission of an entity, so its scope of action, general type of activities undertaken, or stakeholders represented or federated by the organization. So we didn't give any minimum geographical coverage here, we didn't spell it out, but we expect that the operations to be carried out by support organization active at EU level would be carried out in more than one EU member state. So as an example, an organization working in one local community or one region or one member state, or which is periodically or even regularly partnering with other organizations under, for example, EU projects, would not be considered as active at EU level because this is too narrow as their scope of action. Going further to the checks that we are performing within the process. So the first is the financial capacity. For details, I'm sending you to section 7 of the call document. And financial capacity means that the consortium needs to have stable and sufficient resources that would be needed to successfully implement the project. This is the check that will be carried for successful to-be beneficiaries, successful partners of successful proposals. So only during the grant preparation and based on the documents that you will be requested to upload in the participant register. So this will be at the later stage of the process, but I'm mentioning it already now because you need to be prepared. And here a tip, let's say a caveat, is also that in this respect, the financial capacity of the coordinator is very important because the coordinator is the one who receives the grant and then distributes the funding among the partners in the consortium. So it's of utmost importance to have its his coordinator's financial capacity to be sufficient to carry out all this operation. I'm linking here the financial capacity self-check simulator that you can already try on. Of course, this is only a simulator. You can get already an idea whether an entity that you would be choosing as the coordinator could be serving in this role, of course. So select your coordinator wisely. This is our message, and I'm giving you also the link to the guidelines on financial capacity assessment if you need more information on this stage. Operational capacity, this is the term that describes know-how, qualifications, and resources needed to successfully implement the project, and this element is evaluated by the expert evaluators under quality award criterion. So the experts will be looking at the competence, the experience of the applicants and the team to implement the project, at the staff profiles, participants description, list of previous projects, all the information that you would be giving in this respect in the application. So yes, please write your application in a way to describe the operational capacity adequately for your sake and for the sake of the evaluators. And the exclusion situations, this is the element that is listed in section 7 of the call document. So just please check it out so that you don't face any risk of the exclusion based on the listing included there. Here I gathered the key mandatory elements as a, let's say, checklist for you to remember what you need to cover in your application. So the project budget, which I already mentioned, between 750,000 and 1 million, the project length between 24 and 36 months, the mandatory activities that my colleagues already described at length, and here the fourth element, financial support to third parties, which need to cover, at least 50% of grant needs to be dedicated to this fourth category of mandatory activities. And here Milos will be giving you more information on this in his presentation that will be following mine. and the mandatory indicators per each activity, with some mandatory minima that are included in the call, which already also were described by Karel and Martin. They all need to be covered as well. The evaluation procedure that follows all these checks that I mentioned, all the proposals that pass admissibility and eligibility check, they will be subject to evaluation based on award criteria. The evaluation will be carried out by the evaluation committee, which is assisted by independent external experts, and the evaluation committee will assess all applications and create their ranking. And then the successful proposals will be invited to the grant agreement preparation, and the less successful ones will be put on the reserve list or rejected. But all of them, all the applicants, will be informed about the evaluation results with the evaluation result letter that should be coming according to our indicative timeline around May next year. Here are the award criteria and the thresholds, the respective thresholds of points that you might be getting for your application. Of course, this is just a hint, but please take some time to analyze all the elements under each award criterion. The first one is the relevance, that looks at clarity and consistency of the project, objectives and planning, the extent to which they match the core priorities and the core objectives, the EU context, etc. So this is more of a policy background that the experts will be looking at in the evaluation. The second criterion is broken down into two strands, let's say. The first covers project design and implementation. So the experts are looking there at technical quality, methodology, feasibility within the proposed time frame, the cost effectiveness of the whole action, the work plan, obviously. So all the technical aspects of the implementation of the project. Then the second strand is the project team and cooperation arrangement. So the experts are looking at quality and expertise of the consortium, of the team, of the partners' roles, and their the distribution of tasks between them, and their contribution, the procedures, the risks log, the problem-solving mechanisms, etc. And the impact criterion, the last one, which looks at the whole ambition of the whole action. So the long-term impact of the results, the sustainability, the dissemination strategy, etc. Of course, there are more detailed elements under each of these criteria described in the call. So please have a look. But this is the main kind of idea according to which the experts evaluators will be looking at your proposals. And you have in the table the points that you might be getting. So the maximum 100 points that is possible to obtain for each proposal, with the minimum that you need to score to be taken into account for grant, which is 70 points, of course, also with the minima per each criterion that you need to reach to be taken into account. But of course, the higher score, the higher score, the better, of course, in this competition. The last set of my slides, quite a short one, maybe a repetition for those of you who are accustomed with our system, but I gathered some tips and tricks for successful proposal and successful consortium, let's say, that we see under our proposals and the evaluation processes. This might be also useful for you as a checklist. So obviously, read carefully called document, then read it once again. And please consult FAQs that we are updating, as we already said, in the call website on the Funding and Tenders portal. Please have a look at the templates and annexes, prepare the information to be filled in, and don't wait for the last moment, of course, as I already mentioned, because the whole quite effort and sorry, okay. I was hearing some background noises. Think, like, and write the application for an evaluator, because of course you are assessed against all the award criteria, and it's good to put yourself in the shoes of the expert evaluator when preparing the technical description, all the other elements of the application. So you are assessed against the award criteria. So please address all of them for your sake and for your potential success. Structure the info, be specific. 50-page limit sounds quite generous, but it's not so much so. And so you need to be specific, you need to stay in scope, and provide a clear presentation of all the actions. So please write concretely what your tasks, what will be, what the work will be in concrete terms, give quantification, be consistent across the proposal, and please write as much as possible in the reader-friendly manner, because of course, as you can imagine, the experts have several proposals in their hands and to evaluate. So it's only for your benefit if you facilitate their tasks in analyzing all the details that you are giving them in your application. Write also what your project would bring as a special element. So describe your specific contribution and your particular idea. Do not copy just the scope of the call, because this will be well known to the experts. But please try to stand out. Let's say again, if they have a panorama of applications to analyze, it's always good to provide something that would stand out and something more original, if possible, than others. And of course, technicalities, check the completeness of your proposal. So go through my presentation once again and check that you have all the annexes. Do not forget the Annex 5, and submit as early as possible. Don't wait for the last moment. Here are the elements that experts are looking at consistently. So the budget is very important. The budget should be quite detailed and complete. The detailed budget table is really detailed. So this requires quite some effort to prepare. But also, please make sure that the whole budget reflects the deliverables, the activities, the description of the proposal. This is being cross-checked, of course, by the experts. The budget needs to be cost-effective, so of course the budget items must be necessary for the project execution. I'm just giving you some hints here, because of course Milos in his presentation will be talking more about the budget, but this is the general, let's say, checklist of the most important elements for you when you are building the proposal. Also, an important element on division of tasks and responsibilities between the partners in the consortium. This is also an element where the experts are paying attention to, because it shows, of course, your kind of vision of the implementation forward. So not to forget this. And of course, build an application that is ambitious but realistic, because of course, please remember that what you plan within the application, you will need to execute in practice later on. We evaluate the proposal as they are, so as they are written, and then there is not much or at all scope for any further improvements. So what you promise, then you will need to try to deliver. And my last slide, the tips, let's say the helpers rather, on how to find your partners and build the consortium if you need them. You have at hand the Partner Search database on Funding and Tenders portal that I'm linking on my slide, and the Enterprise Europe Network Cooperation Opportunities database that serves a similar purpose. You can look through if you need some partners, let's say, to consult or to invite into your consortium. Of course, you have to include partners only upon their consent, and this is the responsibility of the coordinator in the consortium. And if you encounter any problems, please get support. I'm linking the contacts for the IT help desk, and that you might want to, let's hope not, but if you need them for any technical difficulties, then please contact them directly. You have the online manual for applying via Funding and Tenders portal, and again, you have our address, mail address, to send us any questions that you might have beyond this meeting that we are having now, to be sent by 7 February next year, and we will try to cover all your questions in FAQs that are then updated and appearing in the Funding and Tenders portal core website. And this is the end of my presentation. Any questions, then please post them into Slido, and Ralph is screening them, I imagine.
I think we are as a team already on it, and thank you very much, Anna, for your intervention. That's a lot of information. I would say we have received indeed quite a number of questions, and we're good on time to dedicate about 15 minutes more or less on the questions. That should answer some of them at least. As we said earlier, if not all, then we have other channels later to work on those and give you the answers in writing. So we start with one that is here in blue. Can an organization participate in more than one consortium? Can it apply with two different project proposals in two different consortia? What is your answer?
Yes, indeed. The applicants can submit more than one proposal for different projects under our call. But of course, if there are several proposals for very similar projects, then only one application will be accepted and evaluated. So we will ask the applicants to withdraw from one of them in this case. But the general rule is that yes, it's permitted, but of course don't submit identical proposals, let's say, many identical proposals under the same call, because this we will be cross-checking, of course.
And if under this call, we're also looking quite heavily into the capacity building, and the colleagues from DG mentioned it earlier, clearly also within the organizations actually being active in the field. Do we have an increased interest now of having more than one proposal, or an entity applying under more than one proposal? There is no formal criterion in the call as such, but as the question was put forward, how will we look at that? In a neutral way, it can be participation in 2, 3, 4 proposals, or would we say that focus on one, that's the best?
Well, in general, we would appreciate rather to have more quality than quantity. So of course, it would be better to focus on one, the perfect one. But of course, the call allows you to participate in a few of them. But of course, we expect that there will not be an influx of, let's say, production line of the proposals, because of course it requires effort to build a consortium and to build a proposal. So yes, my answer is in the middle. Let's say you are allowed to do this, but we would expect and we count on the highest quality rather than the quantity and the number of proposals.
Very well, thank you for that, Anna. I take another one which goes back to the previous one on 60 or 50 or 40 indicators under the different I'll take first that one, under the different topics. I do not understand if the 40 or 60 SME are part of the consortium. Do the 60 SMEs need to be pre-identified already in the application? I understood that the beneficiary SMEs should be identified through a public call, so it is impossible to identify them previously. Is that correct?
Let me look at. Okay, so the SMEs do not have to be pre-identified in the proposal. That is for sure. 60. I'm checking where this confusion comes from. 60 is the minimum for our indicator on activity 4, so financial support to the third parties. So we expect that you would support at least 60 SMEs simply with this part of the budget. And now I'm looking at the question once again to understand where the difficulty lays, in fact. That's fine. Yes. Okay. So I think I answered. And on the public call, yes, as for the implementation of financial support to the third parties, we would expect, and this is described in the call as well, that you will be launching your own calls for selection of the recipients of this part of the budget. So selection of the interested SMEs to then consume and implement the financial support to the third parties part.
Yeah.
And Milos will be, as Milos is saying to me, that he will be talking about this in his presentation just in more details right now. I mean, after we answer the questions.
Okay. Might be an idea to draft a formal FAQ
Yes,
on actually this part, where seems to be certain confusion on 40/60 part of the consortium or not, etc. So maybe that we can clarify in one larger FAQ, and you've got it all in one. What is the minimum number of public institutions that need to be involved in each project? Is there a minimum?
No, there is no minimum. We didn't include public institutions in the compulsory composition of the consortium. So among the eligibility criteria for the consortium, there is no requirement for the public institutions to be there.
Is there a minimum number of SMEs to be granted with funds at country level?
I do not think so. No, we didn't specify this. No, we didn't. I was just checking my brain whether I understood correctly the question. No, we didn't. We don't specify the minimum of the SMEs to be supported at a country level. Just the minima in some
project.
of the indicators for the whole project. Exactly.
Yeah. And one project could focus on 2 countries only, but also on 7 or 12 countries.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Consortium composition 6 is the no. You take the another one. You mentioned the list of previous key projects from the past 4 years. What do you mean by that? By previous project, is that also non-EU projects or just the EU ones?
It could cover non-EU projects as well. We are just asking for the activities, the projects that you participated in, and you means the beneficiaries, the partners in the consortium, or the consortium, if you are accustomed to work together already in some actions, to demonstrate your previous activities, but also your experience, your know-how, you being accustomed with the systems of implementation of the projects for the expert evaluators to evaluate your capacity, your operational capacity, and point.
Right, we went through this. Regarding the consortium composition, 6 is the minimum number of entities for country or in total for the entire consortium. I think that's a quick win. No? 6 is the minimal number of entities.
Yes, for the consortium.
Per country or in total for the entire consortium?
For the entire consortium.
The call does not have any specific country requirement, if I understood correctly.
It has minimum number of, I have to maybe read it once again, but I covered this. I'm just a bit cautious on this because it's important to give it exactly as it's written in the call and not from my failing memory, so that I don't confuse you even more. But let me double check again and repeat. So you need to have in the consortium at least 6 independent entities from at least 3 different eligible countries. And this is how it's written as the first eligibility requirement for the consortium. So I hope this answers this query.
So you can, within that frame, you can think about any possible combination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, eligible countries, as I mentioned before, but yes, the combinations are up to you.
Good. Thank you very much. Then we've got one more. It just escaped. We'll take this one on support organizations. Is a national network member of an European network eligible? A national network, or sort of national organization, a national network, member of a European network, or maybe European umbrella network eligible. It is just a member in a European network, therefore active at EU level.
Here, maybe I would bump it into my DigiGrow colleagues because.
Yep.
Yep.
No, the answer is no. It's not because you're a member of a European network that you have activities and members yourself in other countries. It's a bit the same of having, for example, participated in an Interreg project. That doesn't make you operate. Your core organization is still a national federation. You participated in a project, but that doesn't make you a European network. I hope that's clear.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is it possible to have simultaneous translation for activities in transnational capacity building? Simultaneous translation, the question escaped.
Here, I'm not sure whether I understood correctly, but I would imagine that you refer to the activities under the project, and then up to you how you organize them. If you need for your recipients to have translation, and you tailor the budget accordingly. I mean, you plan the budget. Why not? Of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think many times in the projects and evaluations, it's about how you explain, how much sense it makes, and how the message comes across. If you can present it in a convincing manner, then the answer is it might make sense. Is it necessary to include also social SMEs in the consortium? I take what is there.
You need to comply with the eligibility criteria for the consortium. And then you have your recipients under financial support to the third parties, and that's it. So we don't
I assume this is the same question as the previous one. If the SMEs that are supported by the consortia need to be member of the consortia, but that's not the fact because that's third party financing. I assume that this question is basically the same.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just looking.
We'll take another one. Otherwise, in the meantime,
if I maybe can add, if the question alternatively focused on the type of SMEs, the core focus is on social economy. Of course, in this call, because the term social SME is a bit confusing in this regard. But I don't know if that was the nature of the question. So.
But you don't rule out that an SME is part of a consortium.
No, that's possible. That's definitely possible, but not mandatory because we have these minimum 60 SMEs to be supported. Those 60 don't need to be member of the consortium because they are supported through this clause of third-party financing, as already explained. So maybe the confusion existed there.
I think it was an interesting question and also a clear answer. Thank you for that, because it shows to everybody who's listening here that you have actually a quite high margin of flexibility in view of composing your consortium. There is very few limitation, in fact, when you look at this. Yes, there are some elements that the Commission and the agency want to see in the consortium, but it leaves you a lot of room to be creative and to look for creative partnership. All right, I'll take one that is there left, and then I would move. No, it's gone. Okay, I take another one, and then we would move into financial provisions of the call. Assuming budget is €1 million, and the financial support to third parties is 50%, then of the budget or of the grant?
Of the grant.
Of the grant. Okay, very good. That is quick answer. And if we take the last one, should we take it? No. Okay, we'll kind of give hand over now to the financial to the presentation on financial aspects. Before we do that, Minos, would you allow me still to provide for 2 comments, because building on Anna's excellent presentation, I wanted to share with you one particular aspect, maybe even our last speaker, Simona, will elaborate a bit on, a successful project coordinator. But what for me is always very important to underline is that when you look at the award criteria, and it was highlighted to read them thoroughly, take them seriously, and to respond to each and single one of them in a tailored manner. Think about why you propose what you propose and how you do it. Because many times we see in proposals that it is not elaborated sufficiently, and the more information, comprehensive and concise, but still comprehensive, and above all, convincingly. Try to formulate what you propose in a convincing manner, and then usually the message comes true, comes across, and actually it becomes what you want to propose, becomes even more concrete and visible and understandable for yourself. It sounds a little bit like what you would naturally expect, but our evaluations show that this is not always the case. And with a budget table, and I'm sure with the financial provisions we come to that as well, why have we actually such a sophisticated structure? It is to put you in, to prepare you right from the beginning to what follows at the project implementation or after the project is finished, when you need to provide financial reporting. When we ask you about declaring your costs, then the structure of the financial reports basically mirror almost 100% what we expect from you in the budget detailed budget table at the proposal submission stage. That is enough from me now. I hand over to my colleague Milos. Thank you for joining, and we're all eager to hear about the financial provisions of the call.
Yes, I'm sure. I hope everybody can see my presentation. So, good morning, everybody. Still morning, yes. My name is Milos Stanojevic, and I will be working as a financial officer together with Anna on this call, and I'm here to discuss a little bit with you the most interesting part of every call, which is finances and how we compose our budgets and have them reflect the operational part of the delivery of your actions. So as you can see at this first at the first slide, I'll be discussing just to get not the tech quiz, as you can all see. First we will be discussing what are the financial documents that you need to submit as a part of your application, which is something that needs to follow and logically be aligned towards what is written in the operational parts of your applications. And the two elements, the two documents that need to be submitted are, as you can see, the summarized budget table and the detailed budget table. Summarized budget table is less detailed and a more of a roof document that is a part of the application form of part A, and you fill it in directly online from your side in your IT interface. We'll go into details about these two later on. This is just an overview message in the beginning. And when it comes to detailed budget table, this is the second one, which is the part B of the application form. This is a table that is much more detailed, as the name says, and you need to download the template from your application portal, fill it in, and then upload it back in the PDF format. So it's important to understand the difference between these two, how they are completed and submitted electronically. What's important is this is very important, that the financial data in these two tables, they need to match. We need to have 100% match. So because one is filled directly online and the other one you fill in, let's say, locally in your PC. So please make sure that these are matching, and otherwise summarized table will take precedence. Again, as at most of our recent calls, there's no paper submission, no hard copies, only online submission. Below you can see the small screenshots of how your interface should look like when submitting. Next slide. So first I will go through the detailed budget table. This is the, let's say, most complex document that you need to complete when it comes to financial matters. There, all the financial details are in detail presented, and you will be required to provide not just the numbers, but also on the right-hand side, you will see a very important description box where you will need to provide us with the details of your calculations under each budget provision, but we'll come to that a bit later on. So the detailed budget table consists of 5 sheets. The sheet 1 and 2 are let's just say introductory sheets, and they don't need to be submitted. You can submit only sheets 3, 4, and 5. If you submit 1 and 2, it's no big deal, nobody will be penalized for that. But just for you to know that we only need to see sheets 3, 4, and 5, and 1 and 2 are simply to help you to encode your financial data in the most accurate manner. What's really important, and I will mention this later on one more time, is to complete one detailed budget table that we talk about now per each member of consortium or affiliated entity. So each has to have one detailed budget table, otherwise the application is not according to requirements. A small tip that if you don't have any cost in a certain category, you don't need to play with the template itself to delete the box or try to in any way manipulate it. Just leave it empty, and that's okay. The system will accept it, and we will see that it's empty, and you don't have to put a 0 or anything. Just leave it empty, and that's it. So this is about these 2 pages, which are really introductory. And now when we go into really the core of this financial document, this is the detail table. Again, one needs to be completed per each member of the consortium or affiliated entity. And here you actually enter all the costs and you break them down to the lowest possible level, where you define to us what costs will you have in which categories. We'll come to that later on. And this has to reflect, of course, what you operationally provide in the operational part of the application, which means that there needs to be a logical connection between the costs you are proposing to us and the activities that will be delivered, and their scale, their nature, etc. We will together with my colleagues, we will go through this and ensure that there is some sort of structure and logic between the 2 documents, the operational and the financial. Please include only eligible costs. We will go later on through what are eligible costs, but it's important that the costs that are not eligible that you might have, etc. This is something that we don't need to see and should not be entered here, because it will not. It will cause only confusion to both of us, to both our side and your side, and then we will have to rediscuss and open the budgetary issues. Also, something that comes pretty logical: list each cost only once. This is something we will be very, very, very precise about, and very important to put the cost in the right work package. So this is something that we will also look at, that the cost that you are listing actually applies to the work package where you are listing it. When you open this detailed table, you will see that there is per each work package that you are proposing, there is a separate table to enter the costs. And please make sure that the costs that you have entered are entered in the right work package section. Of course, we know that you cannot have now at the planning stage, you cannot have a perfect overview of all the costs you will have. So we ask you to use your best estimates. When using your best estimates, always try to be slightly, maybe this is just a small tip, try to be maybe slightly on the higher side, not to end up then that you are having costs that are too high, because with the amount that we allocate to you after the award and the evaluation, we cannot go higher with that amount afterwards throughout the project implementation. If your costs are significantly higher in all the areas and we cannot compensate anywhere, then simply we are limited with the amount that we award to your proposal, and we cannot increase that. So please have this in mind when preparing your budgets, and leave some room for you, because this will be very useful for you throughout the implementation. A small technical tip: when you see a white cell, you need to enter data there. If you see a blue cell, these data are automatically calculated, so you don't have to enter anything there. Consolidated table per participant. I apologize for all these cumbersome titles of tables, but we don't have a better name yet for them. You don't have to know the name and to memorize it. I'm just giving you tips. You can remember the number that you will see in your Excel table. In this table number 4, this one shows different costs headings per work package that we talked about earlier. And once you enter the data in the previous table, in table number 3, once you enter the data correctly there, this table will automatically calculate the numbers here, and you will be able to have an overview of your costs per cost heading and per work package. So it's sort of a control sheet for you to see where the majority of the work will go, and then you will see if it makes sense or not for you that the most of the activities goes here and there in this work package or that work package, and for this cost heading or that cost heading, and you will be able to spot any errors that you might have made. So it's a really good control tool for you as well when you prepare your budget of your proposal. Consolidated table per project, another very easy to remember name. It will show you the costs. This is the sheet number 5 in your Excel document. It shows costs per work package and per participant. This one you need to complete manually. Usually the coordinator is the one who does that after the data from all the beneficiary is submitted. And please, again, very important, the financial data must match with the ones that are automatically calculated in the other tables. So please double check. This is the first thing we will check. And then if this is not correct, we'll have to return or even go even further. So please have in mind that this accuracy of your submission is very important for us, because if some data, financial data don't match, then we are clueless about actually which number is correct, and it makes our evaluation more difficult and creates problems for everybody involved in the process. So please make sure that the financial data that you manually enter match the one that are automatically calculated. I'm sorry if I'm repeating this too many times, but it's really important. Okay, now that we know everything we need to know about the detailed budget table, let's go in to discuss a bit the cost categories. Cost categories are that we will discuss here are different cost categories that you can ask to be reimbursed, basically, that you can include into your project budget, which are eligible under this call and under the general financial regulation of the European Commission. You have all these details in the call document, and you should consult it as many times as possible and double check before submission. I will now go briefly, as much as our time allows, through the project cost and the project income, which we can enter into the budget tables. So on the project cost side, as you can see, we have the 5 different headings: personnel costs, subcontracting costs, purchase costs, other cost categories that we will discuss what they are, and indirect costs. And on the income side, we have EU contribution or EU grant, as we like to call it, and revenues and contributions by third parties or third sources, and the own resources contribution. We'll go now in detail into these categories to see what is eligible and what is not eligible. So when it comes to personnel costs, we have different categories here. You can see the 4 categories we have. Now I will go through each of the category in more detail so that we have some clarity on what would be eligible under these subcategories A1 to A4. So the costs for employees or equivalent, when we say equivalent, this is somebody who has also some sort of a contract with the company but is not a classical employee. This is, of course, an eligible cost, and the eligible personnel here are the ones contractually employed by the entity in the consortium. And these employees, this staff need to be assigned to the action. That's very important. So there needs to be a proof that this person is working for the action. When we talk about what kind of costs for this person are eligible, this is very important. So we, of course, what is eligible is the salaries, the social contribution, taxes, etc. All the other costs that could possibly be in the contract of the person that exist there and that have been actually incurred. But here we have to be careful because we also have non-eligible costs when it comes to employees, which are, as you can see on the sheet, arbitrary bonuses or some dividends, etc. What does it mean arbitrary? That's the key word. If the person already receives some bonus for years that is in the contract of the person, and it's based on its performance, etc., this is something that could be eligible. We'll have to take a look into this on case-by-case basis. But if we see that the person has never received any bonus, it doesn't exist in their contract, then suddenly under our action, this person gets a huge bonus at the end of the year. Then this is something that will probably be deeply analyzed and more likely to be non-eligible than eligible. So just have in mind that as long as you follow your standard practice for remuneration of employees, then the cost will be eligible. As soon as we see that there is no clear evidence that this is the regular way of remunerating your employees, this is something that will cause us to go into a deeper analysis and, as I said, more likely to be declared non-eligible than eligible cost. Calculation is pretty simple. You can present in monthly rates for each person their cost. You simply take the annual cost that the entity has for this person, divide by 12 months, and that's it. What's important when calculating the rates, or if in certain cases presenting in working days, when person has very little, let's say, inputs, the maximum working days eligible per year under this call is 215 working days. So all the costs that would be related to a person working more than 215 working days per year would be not eligible, this part of the remuneration. So please have this in mind. Also, a small tip when you are doing internally your recording of the working days via timesheets or whichever sort of data capture tool you are using, please have in mind that this in the country where you work, the local holidays, bank holidays, cannot be also booked in timesheets as working days. There needs to be a special approval a priori provided by Anna or whoever is the project officer for your contract, and this is something that it takes time. It's a procedure, so you cannot just assume that this will be eligible. So costs that you might have, that's the second category for natural seconded persons. This is something that is also very often causes questions. If the person is seconded by a third entity and there is a payment towards the third entity for this person, this is also an eligible cost. For natural persons that have a direct contract but not employment contract with the entity, like the freelance experts, for example, they are eligible if they work under the similar conditions like regular employees. What's also important is that the costs are not significantly different than the costs of a person performing similar tasks at a similar level of expertise in the entity itself. So again, this logic has to apply, that there is a standard procedure that you apply, and if you don't apply the standard procedure, then this is always a cause for concern from our side. Of course, the work results of this person needs to belong to the beneficiary, and again, we are coming to the similar approach as to employees. The costs that you are declaring have to be related just to remuneration and taxation. We cannot have some costs which are completely one-off. Just in this case, then this will also probably be further analyzed. Also, an area of cost that could be somewhat troublesome to define, the cost for SME owners that don't receive a salary. First, to say that natural persons are not eligible if not receiving a salary, but SME owners can be eligible under this call. What's important is that the person is registered in a registration document of the entity as the owner or the co-owner of the entity, that the entity itself is the beneficiary of the action, and that it's an SME. That's also important, and that the person doesn't receive a classical salary. So all these conditions need to be fulfilled if we want to book any costs under this category. Later on, you will see how the interface looks like in the document that you need to submit. That's on the next slide. One more note here: when you are calculating the rate for this SME owner, here we are pretty, let's say, limited to what the to what our documents are call documents are defining, which means that the unit cost, the daily rate that you can use, is defined in Annex 2 of this call document, and you multiply it with the coefficient with the coefficiency rate, which you also have in the Commission decision that I have listed here. And it's different for each country. So the SME owner is not the one who himself defines the amount. No, we have the starting amount of 280 something euros, don't know it by heart, and then we multiply this rate by the coefficient for the country where the SME owner works, and then you will get the rate that you can use. This rate is fixed, cannot be debated and discussed, and that's the only one that can be used for this person. This is very important. So before actually thinking about this cost, take a look, calculate what will be the rate, and see if this is something that is financially doable and viable for the person in question. Okay, so this is what I was talking about before, the different categories for the personnel costs. You will see on the bottom we have the SME owners that we discussed, and on top the employees. Okay, the subcontracting costs, this is something we can go relatively quickly through this. These are the costs which are related to the project task, but that you are not delivering within the consortium, within your beneficiaries. This is the task that you simply outsource to another entity or whomever is delivering it, but they are acting autonomously. You are not directly supervising them and managing them. They don't have a direct contract, for example, like a consultant that would have a direct contract with the entity. It's important that the certain conditions here are respected. That first and most important, that these are not core tasks. So this is something that we will also discuss internally when we see subcontracting costs between the operational and the financial part of SME, if these costs represent the core task or not. It's important that they are not. And they need to be described in Annex 1 and budgeted in Annex 2, or sometimes when they are not expected and we still need to have them, they can be ex post approved. But this is something that is, again, in a way, fait accompli, and we would like to avoid ex post approval as much as possible and to have ex ante approval, or the best way would be to already be included in Annex 2 at the submission stage. If they are above 30% of the total cost, they need to be justifying the application in detail. Based on the actual cost. And of course, what's really important is that we don't like to see any conflict of interest there, which means if you have certain subcontracting costs and we are seeing that these costs are being allocated to a company when is, for example, the brother of the coordinator, project manager, this is something that raises our eyebrows a little bit, and then we get into investigating this, because all the costs under our calls need to be free of conflict of interest. And yeah, I'm sure you understand what is our policy and approach on this. Now let's talk about purchase costs, these are the costs, let's say, sort of a sideway cost that everyone has on their projects. Usually, they are not related to they are not the part of the tasks directly targeted at reaching the goals of the project and implementing the task. They don't fall into any of the category that we just went through, but they are still something that is very much needed. And this is you can see the subcategories which are listed: the travel and subsistence, equipment, and other goods and services. We'll go a bit more into that in a minute. So as I said, these are the costs that you are not your direct costs for services, for analysis, for studies, etc., that you're delivering, not the manpower cost, not the personnel cost, etc., but you still need to have them, like travel, for example, and this is the section where they go. They need to be, in order to be eligible, they need to be allocated to the personnel working on the action, if we are talking, for example, about now travel and accommodation and subsistence. And they need to be necessary for, so we cannot have a trip somewhere where there's absolutely no relation to any a need of the project, simply because person would like to work, I don't know, from the French Alps during the ski season. I mean, this is not an eligible cost, even though the person is working under the action, but we need to see the logic why certain travel and accommodation and subsistence is there, even though I'm sure we would all like to work from the French Alps during the winter, but unfortunately it's not possible. Also, this cost can be, this is very important, they can be budgeted as actual cost that you incur, or unit costs, which are prefixed amount. But please be careful if you are going with the unit costs. These are not the costs that you might usually apply yourself. These are the costs that are the values, basically the amounts, are defined in the Commission decision that you can see here. And these are the ones that are the maximum that you can budget under unit cost. So in this time of instability, with the aggression in Ukraine that we have, with the growing prices of energy, I would personally, if I was preparing an application, most probably go for actual costs, because in that way you lower the risk. I know that unit cost sometimes can be easier to manage, but we accept both, as I said, and it's up to you to decide which way to go. But if you are using unit cost, please use the prefixed amounts that are defined in the Commission decision. That's the only one that can be accepted under unit costs. This is just a glimpse of the interface for these costs. You see different categories here. Equipment again is eligible under this call, either new or a second hand, and you can rent it or lease it as well. There's only one important rule here, and this is depreciation, which means that only depreciated cost of equipment is accepted, and this means that you need to define the duration that depreciation of the equipment will be applied to during the project. For example, if it is 36 months, if you're going to use the equipment throughout the whole period, and your project is for 36 months, you put this number of months. If it's going to be less, you put less. And it's very important also to define the rate of actual use. For example, if the machine will be used only 50% under this section, and the 50% for other commercial purposes of your entity, you also need to put this, and then the system will automatically calculate how much you are entitled to receive when you enter these two data, which is the duration and the rate of use. Of course, you need to have it properly recorded in your assets register as usual practice of the entity. Now, financial support to third parties may be the most important item on the list here. As mentioned before, it has to be at least 50% of the grant of the amount that you are requesting from the European institutions, and it is reimbursed at 100% of the cost incurred. To avoid confusion, maximum amount per third party that you are awarding or sub-awarding or sub-granting this amount is 60,000 euro. So one entity that you are giving the amount to, this financial support to third party, can receive up to maximum 60,000 euros. So this is per one entity. This doesn't mean that this is maximum that you will have. You will have more, most likely, in your budget, but no entity can receive more than this amount. Very important. I saw this question before. Consortium members or affiliated entities cannot provide services as part of financial support to third parties. So all the beneficiaries in the consortium, when you're awarding 60,000 under different modalities that are defined in Section 2, the eligible channels, you cannot be benefiting from this amount in any way on the other side, providing any trainings like the intended purposes and eligible channels defined in the call document in Section 2 are talking about, for example, lump sum for trainings. You cannot be, any of the entities cannot be benefiting from this amount. That's very important. Again, check out the Section 2 of the call document. It's very important that these eligible channels of delivery of FSTP are respected. Please elaborate in detail about the financial support of third parties in your proposal, because it's such a big part, half of the value of the call. We need to see and to be clear about what are the objectives, what you plan to achieve, what are the conditions under which your open call will be delivered, what are your criteria, modality of delivery. Again, please, no conflict of interest. Transparency is very important. We need to see clear criteria to be predefined for on these open calls, and it's very important that no issue when it comes to conflict of interest arises in terms of the entities that have been awarded with the money. I know I'm sure there will be more questions on this, so let's go further on. Indirect costs. Indirect costs are the favorite type of costs both for you and for us in a way, because these are the costs which you have, as we usually call them, overheads, running and operating costs, which are not directly related to the action and cannot be contributed in terms of entering them anywhere and booking them directly. Basically, this is a 7% flat rate that is applied and calculated on the basis of all other headings of eligible cost put together. Basically, 7% of the value of your project, of your action. They will be automatically calculated by our IT system, the 7%. For example, this is like stationery or the rent of the office or utilities, etc. The other costs that are still in a way related and that you have them. So we are not ignoring them. We know that they are there, and they are to be within the 7%. And we don't need any breakdown of this cost from you. This is something that you will do internally and calculate them, but 7% is what you will get, and this is not something we can go above, even if your cost might be higher than this. This is the maximum that we can give. So this is, I think, my last slide. Some specific costs which are special. For example, the VAT. Yes, if you have a case of non-deductible VAT, this can be eligible under this call. The second condition, I don't think it's very applicable to this call, but if there is an entity acting as a public authority, then the VAT paid there is not eligible for obvious reasons. When it comes to kickoff meetings, I don't know if Anna has mentioned this already, but yes, the cost of kickoff meetings are eligible if the meeting takes place after the starting date of the project. It's very important. Project website. If there is an existing website where you are having costs to include the information about your action, then this cost, yes, is eligible, but cost for a separate project website is not eligible. We cannot build a separate project website and book the cost to this action. Please have this in mind. And finally, in-kind contributions are, let's say, not eligible under this call. You can show them and describe them, but only if they are cost neutral. You cannot book any costs under in-kind contributions under this call. Finally, okay, I guess this is the last slide. When it comes to project income, as we said, from the EU grant, we have 100% reimbursement rate for FSTP and 90% for all other categories. So 90%, 10% is not reimbursed, and this should be the two other categories, either own resources and own contributions, or revenues and contributions by third party. For example, like direct revenues from third parties or receipts, conference participating fees or something. Yeah. So thank you everybody for your attention, and I'm here for the questions.
Thank you very much, first of all. That was pretty exhaustive. Not exhausting, exhaustive.
Both maybe.
sometimes it can be, but very clear to me at least. But we do have some questions that we would like you to answer if possible. Let's go to Slido and see what we've got. 50% of the grant must be directed to SMEs or entrepreneurs. Is this meant in a financial way or in the sense of the amount of focus, small grants or capacity building services?
Is this for me or for you, Anna?
I
would say.
Go ahead if you can answer, because I'm
probably a couple of elements that
trying to understand what the author of the question meant. Yeah.
What I can confirm is that the 50% of the EU grant must be allocated to through the FSTP, to the financial support to third parties. What does it mean, amount of focus? It's not clear to me, but if this means services to be provided by the consortium members towards SMEs, this doesn't count into the 50%. So 50% must be, let's say, plastically has to leave the account of the coordinator or whichever entity is delivering the FSTP towards third parties. That is important.
And if one of the consortium members would offer services outside the consortium, so another entity buying services for an SME, is that eligible services or
No.
not?
No.
Okay.
The
All right.
consortium members cannot benefit from this 50% in any way after it's out of the.
Maybe we could encourage the one who drafted that question to also issue a formal FAQ via the tool, so we could take it up, consult it internally, because it is a bit of a specific and partly tricky part of the financial management, the financial support to third parties, so that we clear that a good time before the submission deadline. And then we take another one regarding financial capacity. The financial viability will be assessed for all consortium or only for the coordinator? Do we need to provide an independent audit report for the last balance sheet for all beneficiaries? And maybe, if I may add, when do we do the financial capacity?
Financial capacity will be done before, after the award.
Exactly.
Yes.
So not for all applicants.
No. I think the question is whether for all the members of the consortium or just the coordinator.
Yeah.
In the. I would need to double check this, but as much as I remember,
For all beneficiaries.
For all, yeah? For all private,
for all,
yeah,
yes.
not for public entities, but
yes.
Yes. So the financial capacity check is done for all the beneficiaries, except those who would be public bodies, or if the individual requested grant amount is not more than 60,000. So if you have a partner that requests a very small, in this call, relatively small amount of grant.
Yes. What's important the second part of the question is, yes, the financial reports from your regular auditor, independent, of course, not internal in-house, will need to be provided for the financial capacity assessment. This is the basic document that we use to assess the financial capacity of the entities. Yeah, but this is after the award and when the preparation of the grant agreement starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's not the CFS. That's only from a certain value.
Yes. CFS is at the end of the action, when your financial management throughout the action is only checked, not your financial performance as a whole entity, but only how you have spent the money under the code. These are two different things. One is before you even start, and the other one is at the end of the action.
CFS being?
Certificate of Financial Statement. Yeah.
Just for those that are not accustomed with this abbreviation.
All right, so hope that is clarified. Now we would take the next one. Is there a specific limit for the financial